Thank you all. This is our 50th session for the Srimad Bhagavatam reading. Hope this continues for many more sessions. All of your blessings and expectations. So we are reading the 16th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 723. Please, 17th chapter. So text number 23. Hare Krishna, Praveen Babu.
Hare Krishna, Roji Dhandu Pranam. Translation. Thus, it is 1 minute, Prabhuji. Just increasing the font. Yeah. Thus, it is concluded that the Lord's energies are inconceivable. No one can estimate them by mental speculations or by word jugglery. Purport. इसी उदम स्वामी श्री प्रभुपाद की जय. A question may be raised as to why a devotee should refrain from identifying an actor, although he knows definitely that the Lord is the ultimate doer of everything. Knowing the ultimate doer, one should not pose himself as ignorant of the actual performer. To answer this doubt, the reply is that the Lord is also not directly responsible for everything is done by his deputed Maya Sakti or material energy. The material energy is always provoking doubts about the supreme authorities of the Lord. The personality of religion knew perfectly well that nothing can take place without the sanction of the Supreme Lord. And still, he was put into doubts by the deluding energy. And thus, the refrain from mentioning the supreme cause, the doubtfulness was due to the contamination of both Kali and the material energy. The whole atmosphere of the age of Kali magnified by the deluding energy, and the proportion of measurement is inexplicable. Hare Krishna, Roji.
Text 24. Hare Krishna, Sarasija Mataji, and Abhishek Babu.
Hare Krishna. Translation. Yeah. Translation. In the age of Satya, truthfulness, your 4 legs were established by the 4 principles of austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. But it appears that 3 of your legs are broken due to rampant irreligion in the form of pride, lust for women, and intoxication. Purport: the deluding energy or material nature can act upon the living beings proportionately in terms of the living beings falling prey to the deluding attraction of Maya. Moths are captivated by the glaring brightness of light, and thus they become prey to the fire. Similarly, the deluding energy is always captivating the conditioned souls to become prey to the fire of delusion, and the Vedic scriptures warn the conditioned souls not to become prey to delusion but to get rid of it. The Vedas warn us to go not to the darkness of ignorance but to the progressive path of light. The Lord himself also warns that the deluding power of material energy is too powerful to overcome, but one who completely surrenders unto the Lord can easily do so. But to surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord is also not very easy. Such surrender is possible by persons of austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. These 4 principles of advanced civilization were remarkable features in the age of Satya. In that age, every human being was practically a qualified Brahmana of the highest order. And in the social orders of life, they were all Paramahamsas, or the topmost in the renounced order. By cultural standing, the human beings were not at all subjected to the deluding energy. Such strong men of character were competent enough to get away from the clutches of Maya. But gradually, as the basic principles of Brahmanical culture, namely austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness, became curtailed by proportionate development of pride, attachment for women, and intoxication, the path of salvation or the path of transcendental bliss retreated far, far away from the human society. With the progression of the age of Kali, people are becoming very proud and attached to women and intoxication. By the influence of the age of Kali, even a pauper is proud of his penny. The women are always dressed in an overly attractive fashion to victimize the minds of men, and the man is addicted to drinking wine, smoking, drinking tea, and chewing tobacco, etc. All these habits or so-called advancement of civilization are the root causes of all irreligiosities, and therefore it is not possible to check corruption, bribery, and nepotism. Man cannot check all these evils simply by statutory acts and police vigilance, but he can cure the disease of the mind by proper medicine, namely advocating the principles of Brahmanical culture or the principles of austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. Hare Krishna. Modern civilization.
Hare Krishna. Modern civilization and economic development are creating a new situation of poverty and scarcity, with the result of blackmailing the consumers' commodities. If the leaders and the rich men of the society, one second, of the society spend 50% of their accumulated wealth mercifully for the misled mass of people and educate them in God consciousness, the knowledge of Bhagavatam, certainly the age of Kali will be defeated in its attempt to entrap the conditioned souls. We must always remember that false pride or too high an estimation of one's own values of life, undue attachment to the women or association with them, and intoxication will divert human civilization from the path of peace. However, much the people clamor for peace in the world. The preaching of the Bhagavatam principles will automatically render all men austere, clean both inside and outside, merciful to the suffering, and truthful in daily behavior. This is the way of correcting the flaws of human society, which are very prominently exhibited at the present moment.
Text 25. Hare Krishna Pushkala, you can read.
Hare Krishna. Translation. You are now standing on one leg only, which is your truthfulness, and you are somehow or other hobbling along, but quarrel personified Kali, flourishing by deceit, is also trying to destroy that leg. Purport. The principles of religion do not stand on some dogmas or man-made formulas, but they stand on four primary regulative observances, namely austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. The mass of people must be taught to practice these principles from childhood. Austerity means to accept voluntarily things which may not be very comfortable for the body but are conducive for spiritual realization. For example, fasting. Fasting twice or 4 times a month is a sort of austerity which may be voluntarily accepted for spiritual realization only, and not for any other purposes, political or otherwise. Fastings which are meant not for self-realization but for some other purposes are condemned in the Bhagavad Gita 17.5 and 17.6. Similarly, cleanliness is necessarily both for the mind and for the body. Simply bodily cleanliness may help to some extent, but cleanliness of the mind is necessary, and it is effected by glorifying the Supreme Lord. No one can cleanse the accumulated mental dust without glorifying the Supreme Lord. A godless civilization cannot cleanse the mind because it has no idea of God, and for this simple reason, people under such a civilization cannot have good qualifications, however, they may be materially equipped. We have to see things by their resultant action. The resultant action of human civilization in the age of Kali is dissatisfaction. So everyone is anxious to get peace of mind. This peace of mind was complete in the Satya age because of the existence of the above mentioned attributes of the human beings. Gradually, these attributes have diminished in the Treta Yuga to 3/4, in the Dwapar to half, and this age of Kali to 1/4, which is also gradually diminishing on account of prevailing untruthfulness. by pride, either artificial or real. The resultant action of austerity is spoiled. By too much affection for female association, cleanliness is spoiled. By too much addiction or to intoxication, mercy is spoiled. And by too much lying, propaganda, truthfulness is spoiled. The revival of Bhagavad Dharma can save human civilization from falling prey to evils of all descriptions. Hare Krishna.
26 translation. The burden of the earth was certainly diminished by personality of Godhead and by others as well. When he was present as an incarnation, all good was performed because of his auspicious footprints. Text 27. Hare Krishna Sagar Prabhu. Hare Krishna Sagar Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Text 27. Translation. Now see, the chaste one, being unfortunately forsaken by the personality of Godhead, laments her future with tears in her eyes. But now she is being ruled and enjoyed by lower class men who pose as rulers. Purport. Kshatriya, or the man who qualified to protect the sufferers, is meant to rule the state. Untrained lower class men or men without ambitions to protect the sufferers cannot be placed on the seat of administrator. Unfortunately, in the age of Kali, the lower class men without training occupy the post of ruler by strength of popular votes. And instead of protecting the sufferers, such men create a situation quite intolerable for everyone. Such rulers illegally gratify themselves at the cost of comforts of citizens. And thus, the chaste mother tries to see pitiable condition.
Hare Krishna. Please continue. Hare Krishna Praveen Prabhu. You can.
Hare
Such
Krishna,
rulers, such rulers
Uh,
illegally.
27 Prabhuji.
Yes. Such rulers illegally gratify.
1 minute, Prabhuji. Okay, such rulers. Actually, I am opening it by this one. Okay, such such rulers legally gratify themselves at the cost of all comforts of the citizens, and thus the chaste mother earth cries to see the pitiable conditions of her sons, both men and animals. That is the future of the world in the age of Kali, when irreligiosity prevails most prominently, and in the absence of a suitable king to curb irreligious tendencies, educating the pupils systematically in the teaching of Srimad Bhagavatam will clear up the hazy atmosphere of corruption, bribery, blackmails, etc. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Text 28. Hare Krishna Jagannath Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Translation. Maharaja Parikshit, who could fight 1,000 enemies single-handedly, thus specified the personality of religion and faith. Then he took up his sharp sword to kill the personality of Kali, who is the cause of the all irreligion. Purport. As described above, the personality of Kali is who deliberately commits all kinds of sinful acts which are forbidden in the revealed scriptures. This age of Kali will certainly be full of all activities of Kali, but this does not mean that the leaders of the society, the executive heads, the learned and intelligent men are above all. The devotees of the Lord should sit down tightly and become callous to the reactions of the age of Kali. In the rain season, certainly there will be powerful rainfall, but that does not mean that men should not take means to protect themselves from the rains. It is the duty of the executive heads of the state and others to take the necessary actions against the activities of Kali or the persons influenced by the age of Kali. And Maharaja Parikshit is the ideal executive head of the state. For at once he was ready to kill the personality of Kali with his sharp sword. The administrators should not simply pass resolutions for anti-corruptional steps, but they must be ready with the sharp swords to kill the persons creating corruptions from the angle of vision of the recognized shastras. The administrators cannot prevent corrupt activities by allowing wine shops. They must must at once close all the shops of intoxicating drugs and wines of force punishment, even by death for those who indulge in habits of intoxication of all description. That is the way of stopping the activities of Kali, as exhibited herein by Maharaja Parikshit, the Maharatha. Hare Krishna.
Next 29. Hare Krishna Abhishek Guru. Hare Krishna Abhishek Guru.
Hare Krishna is coming.
Yes. You can read.
Okay. Translation. When the personality of Kali understood that the king was willing to kill him, he at once abandoned the dress of a king and under pressure of fear completely surrendered to him, bowing his head. Purport. The royal dress of the personality of Kali is artificial. The royal dress is suitable for a king or kshatriya, but when a lower class man artificially dresses himself as a king, his real identity is disclosed by the challenge of a bona fide kshatriya like Maharaj Parikshit. A real kshatriya never surrenders. He accepts the challenge of his rival kshatriya and he fights either to die or to win. Surrender is unknown to a real kshatriya. In the age of Kali, there are so many pretenders dressed and posed like administrators or executive heads, but their real identity is disclosed when they are challenged by a real kshatriya. Therefore, when the artificially dressed personality of Kali saw that to fight Maharaj Parikshit was beyond his ability, he bowed down his head like a subordinate and gave up his royal dress. Hare Krishna.
30.
Text 30.
Text 30. Maharaj Parikshit, who was qualified to accept surrender and worthy of being in history, did not kill the poor surrendered and fallen Kali, but smiled compassionately, for he was kind to the poor. Purport. Even an ordinary Kshatriya does not kill a surrendered person. And what to speak of Maharaj Parikshit, who was by nature compassionate and kind to the poor. He was smiling because the artificially dressed Kali had disclosed his identity as a lower class man, and he was thinking how ironic it was that although no one was saved from his sharp sword when he desired to kill, the poor lower class Kali was paid by his timely surrender. Maharaj Parikshit's glory and kindness are therefore sung in history. He was a kind and compassionate emperor, fully worthy of accepting surrender even from his enemy. Thus, the personality of Kali was saved by the will of providence. Hare Krishna.
Text 31. Hare Krishna Praveen Guru. Hare Krishna Praveen Guru.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Sorry, I was on mute. Translation. The king thus said, we have inherited the fame of Arjuna. Therefore, since you have surrendered yourself with folded hands, you need not fear for your life, but you cannot remain in my kingdom, for you are the friend of irreligion. Purport. The personality of Kali, who is the friend of all kinds of irreligiosities, may be exhaust if he surrenders, but in all circumstances he cannot be allowed to live as a citizen in any part of a welfare state. The Pandavas were entrusted a representative of the personality of Godhead Lord Krishna, who practically brought into being the battle of Kurukshetra, but not for any personal interest. He wanted an ideal king like Maharaja Yudhishthira and his descendants like Maharaja Parikshit to rule the world. And therefore, a responsible king like Maharaja Parikshit could not allow the friends of irreligiosity to flourish in his kingdom at the cost of the good fame of the Pandavas. That is the way of wiping out corruption in the state, and not otherwise. The friends of irreligiosity should be vanished from the state, and that will save the state from corruption. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Text 2032. Hare Krishna Pushkala.
Hare Krishna. If the personality of Kali, irreligion, is allowed to act as a man god or an executive head, certainly irreligious principles like greed, falsehood, robbery, incivility, treachery, misfortune, cheating, quarrel, and vanity will abound. Purport. The principles of religion, namely austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness, as we have already discussed, may be followed by the follower of any faith. There is no need to turn from Hindu to Mohammedan to Christian or some other faith and thus become a renegade and not follow the principles of religion. The Bhagavatam religion just following the principles of religion. The principles of religion are not the dogmas or regulative principles of a certain faith. Such regulative principles may be different in terms of the time and place concerned. One has to see whether the aims of religion have been achieved. Sticking to the dogmas and formulas without attaining the real principles is not good. A secular state may be impartial to any particular type of faith, but the state cannot be different to the principles of religion as above mentioned. But in the age of Kali, the executive heads of state will be indifferent to such religious principles, and therefore, under their patronage, the opponents of religious principles such as greed, falsehood, cheating, and pilfery will naturally follow, and so there will be no meaning to propaganda trying to stop corruption in the state. Hare Krishna.
Text 33. Therefore, O friend of irreligion, you do not deserve to remain in a place where experts perform sacrifices according to the truth and religious principles for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Further, Igneshwara, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the beneficiary of all kinds of sacrificial ceremonies. Such sacrificial ceremonies are prescribed differently in scriptures for different ages. In other words, sacrifice means to accept the supremacy of the Lord, thereby perform acts by which the Lord may be satisfied in all respects. The atheists do not believe in the existence of the God, and they do not perform any sacrifice for the satisfaction of the Lord. Any place or country where the supremacy of the Lord is accepted and thus sacrifice is performed is called Brahmavarta. There are different countries in the different parts of the world, and each and every country may have different types of sacrifice to please the Supreme Lord. But the central point in pleasing Him is ascertained in the Bhagavad, and it is truthfulness. The basic principle of religion is truthfulness. The ultimate goal of all religion is to satisfy the Lord. In this age of Kali, the greatest common formula of sacrifice is Sankirtan Yajna. That is the opinion of the experts who know how to propagate the process of Yajna. Lord Chaitanya preached this method of Yajna, and it is understood from this verse that the sacrificial method of Sankirtan Yajna may be performed anywhere and everywhere in order to drive away the personality of Kali and save human society from falling prey to the influence of the age. Text 34. Hare Krishna Sagar.
34. Translation. In all artificial ceremonies, although sometimes a demigod is worshipped, the Supreme Lord, Personality of Godhead, is worshipped because He is the super soul of everyone and exists both inside and outside like the air. Thus, it is He only who awards all welfare to the worshipper. Perfect. It is even sometimes seen that demigods like Indra and Chandra are worshipped and offered sacrificial awards. Yet the rewards of all such sacrifices are rewarded to the worshipper of the Supreme Lord, And it is the Lord only who can offer all welfare to the worshipper. The demigod, all the worship, cannot do anything without the thanks of the Lord, because Lord is the super soul of everyone, both moving and non moving. In Bhagavad Gita 9.23, the Lord himself confirms this in the following sloka. Whatever a man may sacrifice to other gods, O son of Kunti, is really meant for me alone, but it is offered without true understanding. The
ये
fact
अपि
is,
अन्य देवता भक्त यज्ञते श्रद्धयान्वित ते अपि माम् एव कौन्तेय यज्ञाति कविति कुरु. You can continue the last.
so whatever a man may sacrifice to other god, O son of Kunti, is really meant for me alone, but it is offered without true understanding. The fact is that the Supreme Lord is one without a second. There is no God other than the Lord himself. Thus, the Supreme Lord is eternally transcendental to the material creation. But there are many who worship the demigods like the sun, the moon, who are only material representatives of the Supreme Lord. These demigods are indirect qualitative representation of the Supreme Lord. A learned scholar or devotee, however, knows who is who. Therefore, he directly worships the Supreme Lord and is not diverted by the material qualitative representation. Those who are not so learned worship the qualitative material representation, but their worship is unceremonious, but it is irregular. Hare Krishna.
X35. Hare Krishna Jagannath.
Hare Krishna. Sri translation. Sri Sutta Goswami said, the personality of Kali, thus being ordered by Maharaja Parikshit, began to tremble in fear. Seeing the king before him like Yamaraja, ready to kill him, Kali spoke to the king as follows. Purport. The king was ready to kill the personality of the Kali at once, as soon as he disobeyed his order. Otherwise, the king had no objection to allow him to prolong his life. The personality of Kali also, after attempting to get rid of the punishment in various ways, decided that he must surrender unto him, and thus he began to tremble in fear of his life. The king or executive head must be so strong as to stand before the personality of Kali like the personality of death, Yamaraja, like death of Yamaraja. The king order must be obeyed. Otherwise the culprit's life is in risk. That is the why to rule the personalities of Kali, who create the disturbance in the normal life of the state citizens. Hare Krishna.
So we'll stop it here for the day. There are 10 more slokas left in this chapter. We'll continue it in the next class on Tuesday at the same time, 7:30. Thank you so much for giving me your association. Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhyev Vacha Paritana Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Ananta Koti Vaishnavavrinda ki jai. Transcendental book Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you, Prabhu. Dandavat Pranam.
Thank you, Premji. Hare Krishna. Dhanavana.
Prabhu Dandavat Pranam. Jagannath Dandavat Pranam. Thank you, Pushkar. Thank you, Saraswati Abhishek Prabhu Dandavat Pranam. Thank you so much.